Donc, merci à Georges déjà de cette association à organiser ces rencontres. Moi, c'est la première fois que je viens, donc j'aurai le plaisir de répondre à
vous mettre près de micro.
Ici?
Oui.
D'accord. Alors, je bouge souvent.
C'est pas grave.
Non, c'est bon.
Okay, I'm switching to English. Lo podía hacer en castellano, pero el profesor Linares me ha dicho que mi español es muy malo.
No.
No, it's preferable for me to do this in English. So I'm Vincent Salé. I'm CNRS researcher at GEMAC in Versailles, and I propose today to talk about the growth, the properties, and the application of zinc oxide nanowires, which semiconductor. So this work was with collaboration, of course, with my colleagues from GEMAC and these PhD students. Okay, the outline of my talk. I first will give a brief introduction on semiconductors, and especially on this one, zinc oxide. Then I will present some application of this material. I will talk about a MOSFET experiment, which is a growth techniques we have in the lab. We are lucky to have this. And let's say the main part of my talk will be dedicated to the growth and the properties of these zinc oxide nanowires. So a few words about semiconductors, since George told me that it would be listened by people from bachelor students. So we all know silicon. Let's start at the base. Silicon is here. It's a column 4, which is used for microelectronics. Also, 2,6 semiconductors are very interesting. They are made from elements from column 3 here and column 5. We know gallium arsenide, we know gallium nitride and indium phosphide. These materials are very useful for telecommunications and optoelectronics. And you see these two columns, column 2, elements with zinc, cadmium, also magnesium, and column 6, oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium. We can get semiconductors with these elements, combining these elements. So these are inorganic semiconductors. They are crystal. So we'll talk about lattice parameter. We'll talk about cubic or hexagonal structures. And of course, as semiconductors, we will talk about band gap. So we have energy band gap between the conduction band, where we have the electrons, and the valence band, where we have the holes. So, okay. Let's talk about 2,6. These 2,6 semiconductors, which is not the best known family. Here I show you all the semiconductors in blue. And the best way to present semiconductor is to look at them in this diagram, which is the band gap energy as a function of the lattice parameter. So what we see is that these blue materials, they cover a very wide range of energy, or wavelength, which is the same, from the infrared to the UV. Here I show the visible range. So for example, you have mercury cadmium telluride here, which is well-known. The militaries, they love this material, because with this, you are fabricating infrared detection. In the visible, we have cadmium selenide, which is used in the recent TVs, recent displays. We have cadmium telluride, which is used for solar cells. You have solar farms with this material, with square kilometers of these materials. In the UV range, you have the old luminophore, which is zinc sulfide, which was used many years ago in the old TVs, the old cathodic tubes. And we have this material which is very interesting and which we call today, which is zinc oxide. So a few words about zinc oxide. It's a wide bandgap. Wide bandgap material, it's 3.4 eV, so we will expect a UV emission. It's a wurtzite hexagonal structure. In fact, this material is very similar. It's the neighbor of gallium nitride here in the diagram. So they have very similar properties. And you all know gallium nitride since you all have a gallium nitride crystal in your mobile phone. We do light. LEDs are made of gallium nitride. Most LEDs, that's it. What else to say? It's a piezoelectric material, zinc oxide. Very interesting. So you will convert mechanical energy into electrical energy. Also, it's a green material, so it's good for the planet, this material. Zinc, magnesium, oxygen, of course, are abundant elements. And what is interesting is this material, zinc oxide. You can find it in many forms, many shapes. I have translated some words in Spanish so that people can follow. You have bulk materials, lingote. You have epitaxial films, capas delgadas, and what we will call nanowires, nanohalos of this material. This can be easily found. However, there is a big problem, big issue with zinc oxide. It's the lack of p-type doping. In fact, in semiconductors, you will introduce impurities so that you can tune the conduction. So in zinc oxide, it's easy to incorporate donors. Donors are impurities that will give electrons, and that makes the n-type material. However, it's difficult to introduce acceptors. Acceptors will give holes. So to give the p-type, so the p-n junction, it's not achieved. It's not yet achieved in zinc oxide. That's really the main drawback of this material. Okay, another important thing, zinc oxide is a polar material. In fact, this is the wurtzite structure of zinc oxide, and this is the 001 axis. You see there is a stacking of oxygen or zinc planes, and interplane distance is not the same. So it's not a central symmetry, it's a non-central symmetry. Material, so there is spontaneous polarization along this axis. And in fact, we have to distinguish the zinc phase from the oxygen phase. That's very important. These two phases, they have different properties, chemical properties. Here I show you a nice UV luminescence. This is a nice UV emission from a zinc oxide crystal. So at the base of this, there is a recombination of this particle, which is called exciton. It's an electron-hole pair, and when it recombines, it gives a UV photon. Okay, some application of zinc oxide. Well, to say the truth, we could not live without zinc oxide, since it's everywhere in our life. We have 100,000 tons fabricated, so it's no problem to get 1 kilo, 10 kilo, 1 ton of zinc oxide. You can find in cosmetics, baby cream, food for the animals, ceramics, tires, electronics. Recently, it is very used as a window for solar cell because it's a transparent conductor. That's very important. It's not a metal. It's very transparent. And also, it can be used, it is used as a transparent transistor. In fact, it's the alloy with indium and gallium which is used. And this is integrated in the recent displays. And the recent TV. So this is really current material. Sorry. Of course, there are developing applications of zinc oxide. I would mention UV photodetectors that the NASA wants to send in the space. In a UV photodetector, it will be the opposite. You will take the UV photon and it will generate electron and hole pair. And then you measure the photocurrent. It's also interesting, these UV photodetectors are also interesting on beaches, so that we can take with us. I think that in Peru there might be a lot of beaches. I guess. No, it's important to have these detectors, UV detectors, to see the doses of UV in beaches. We have gas detection with zinc oxide, and an interesting application is depollution. It's using photocatalysis. In fact, it's the same. You will create electron and hole pair, but in that case, it will generate with oxygen and hydroxyl ions. It will generate reactive species, and these reactive species, O2 minus and OH star, they can kill bacteria, or they can decompose toxic organic molecules. This is really studied nowadays. So you can imagine paint on concrete also to have depollution in tunnels and so on. And a last application I would talk about, it's very promising. It's energy harvester. As you know, we want to collect as much as possible the most energy that we can. And I told you that zinc oxide is piezoelectric. So imagine that we have nanowires of zinc oxide like this. If we apply mechanical stress on the wire, we will have a photoresponse, not a piezo response. So we will generate a current. So in this device, they have grown millions of nanowires on a flexible substrate, and this is embedded in a polymer matrix. So this is the sample. When they bend, when they fold the sample, when they fold the device, they generate a current, and they can supply enough power to this small display. So there is a huge research nowadays to develop these piezoelectric nanogenerators that will convert that kind of mechanical energy, for example, vibrations or sounds or heavy, very loud noise, and we can convert it into electricity. So we could supply to, for example, sensors. That makes autonomous systems. It's very, very important, and wireless systems. Okay, maybe I skip this, not the best. MOCVD. Now I go back to my lab, and I present the growth techniques we use at GEMAC. MOCVD means metal organic chemical vapor deposition. What we do with this technique, we use these organometallic molecules such as diethyl zinc, this is our zinc source, and nitrous oxide, this is our oxygen source, and we just send these gases into this reactor. The reactor is heated. Here you see there is a substrate holder which is heated with radio frequency. And so what we do, we just let the chemical reaction occur to grow the material. So at GEMAC we have two systems. We have a horizontal reactor where we can introduce 2-inch wafer, for example, 2-inch silicon or 2-inch sapphire or gallium arsenide substrate. And we have this homemade vertical reactor. This is nice, it's very easy to operate, and students can easily use it when they come to the lab for internship. So it's very easy to handle. And about the sources we can introduce. So we have, let's say, the column 2 elements, zinc, cadmium, magnesium. We have column 6, we have oxygen, we have tellurium, we have sulfur, we have selenium. And also we can dope with several elements, like gallium, aluminium, and nitrogen, and so on. So we can do a lot of materials with these systems. A few words about characterization available at GEMAC. We have optical characterization, like photoluminescence, Raman. We have microscopies, IFM, scanning electron microscopies. We have structural analysis, like X-ray diffractions, and of course electrical measurements. Then, yes, interesting. I want to talk about layers. Usually, when you talk about microelectronics, we also grow layers, 2D layers. I will talk about wires, nanowires, which is expected to be, I won't say the future of microelectronics, but it could help, especially with silicons. Okay, so in fact, zinc oxide nanowires, it's not so complicated to grow. I would say, let Mother Nature do the job and no more. These are, let's say, the typical nanowires we grow in the lab. So you see, well, this is a substrate. You see the length is around, let's say, from 1 to 10 microns. And the diameter is around, let's say, between 30 nanometers up to 100, 200, up to 500 nanometers. So they have a very nice hexagonal shape, like this. And if you are interested in the crystallography, you will note that the top facet is 001 C facet, and the lateral facet here are 100, we call it M-plane facets. So the growth conditions, the usual growth conditions are around 900 degrees and at low pressure. And one thing we can note about these nanowires is that they grow on the top of pyramids. The pyramids are, in fact, are zinc oxide pyramids, and they have oxygen polarity. With this oxygen polarity, the slow growth, the growth rate is very slow. Whereas the nanowires, they have zinc polarity, the opposite. And with this polarity, they have a very fast growth rate. That's why they are growing like this. Okay, we have many parameters that explains the mechanism of this growth. You have surface energies. In fact, when you grow a crystal, the system wants to minimize the total surface energy, so it will favor the low energy facet, like this M-plane facet, which will be defined from here, at the expense of the high energy facet, like the C-plane facet. So you will only find this facet on the top. And you have other parameters. One important parameter is the mobility. Here, this is the atom, zinc atom and oxygen atom on the surface. You have to give a lot of mobility to these atoms so that they can diffuse on the substrate and also diffuse on the side walls and to reach the top of the nanowire. And one thing we have demonstrated is that if you grow with oxygen-rich conditions, if you bring a lot of oxygen, the white atoms here on the surface, in fact, you will stabilize the zinc atoms. So you won't grow nanowires, we just grow, let's say, a rough layer. So oxygen flow, you find it very, very important. So, let's say to conclude, we have to find the good conditions to grow the nanowires, like any semiconductor nanowires, but people find them, and a lot of nanowires are grown actually. Another way to grow nanowires, zinc oxide nanowires, is to use this, what I call the funny process. It's catalyzed growth. In fact, it's not so new. The first who reported this catalyzed growth, it's Wagner. And this publication was published in 1964 by Wagner. Here, you will grow the nanowire below a gold droplet. So you will have to form gold. For example, you deposit a gold layer, then you anneal, so there is a dewetting process, and you form the gold droplet on the surface, like this. And the nanowire will grow just below the droplet, like this. And I think I should have a movie to show you. And this is called VLS. They call it VLS because the droplet is liquid, the wire is solid, and you supply the elements with the vapor phase. So this is done in Citroën lab. This is very impressive. This is transmission electron microscopy. This is the top of one nanowire. This is a droplet. In fact, it's the growth of gallium arsenide droplet, and the droplet is liquid. It's an alloy between gold and gallium. And each white spot corresponds to atoms, to a column of atoms. So here, it's really observation at the nanoscale. So this is in a TEM, but this is also growth in TEM, and you will see if it works.
Yes.
You see the growth. It's layer by layer. It's plane by plane. You see how so it's very, very nice to let's say, investigate the fundamental mechanism of this crystalline growth.
C'est la vraie vitesse.
Je crois. I think so. No, they do amazing things. And it is called Nanomax. Nanomax, the apparatus. It's located at the École Polytechnique in Palaiseau. Ah oui.
C'est accéléré.
C'est accéléré.
C'est vrai. C'est vrai. Okay. Yes. This is the good opportunity to talk about phase diagram. And I thought it would be good for the students. It's a good example of what we can do with phase diagram. So here, this is the case of silicon. I will go back to the case of silicon. So this is the phase diagram between gold here and silicon. So you have pure gold and you have pure silicon, and in between you have the alloy, the aleation. And also this point is interesting, what we call a neutectic point. There is a melting temperature which is very low at this point. So what happens here? We assume that we start with this droplet, which the composition is at the eutectic point. So if we put this sample at 600 degrees here, the phase diagram says that we are liquid. It's the blue dot here. So the droplet is liquid here. So now I will send the silicon vapor. What happens? The silicon is diffusing through the droplet. So the droplet gets richer and richer in silicon. The concentration is increasing, so we move the blue point towards the right. If we continue, the blue point is reaching that curve. That curve is the liquidus. And that curve says, okay, no more. At that point, we reach the solubility limit. If you go more to the right, we will have a solid phase, a silicon solid phase. And it is exactly, what happens. In fact, there is supersaturation at that point. So there is solid silicon precipitation just here at the interface between the liquid droplet and the solid nanowire, which is growing. So that's why it is called vapor, liquid, solid process. Okay? So we see that it works with zinc oxide. We have many nano objects. We have wires, we have nano sheets, we have nano ribbons. We can get also aligned on silicon substrate. We get aligned nanowires. However, I have to say that the mechanism is really different compared to the silicon. In fact, in that case, the droplet is remaining solid. It's not a liquid droplet. So we'll talk about VSS, but it is still catalyzed growth. Okay, just to finish, I will show you how we can play with in situ doping. So in situ doping means during the growth, we will send some impurities, some other gases in the reactor. So these are the undoped, non-doped nanowires, as I just showed you. And if I introduce ammonia in the reactor, I will grow nitrogen-doped nanowires. So here we see that we keep the same aspect ratio, we keep the same shape. But if I introduce antimony, this molecule with antimony, you see that here there are no more nanowires like pencils. So there is a strong effect on the morphology. And this is also a nice example of facet transformation when we dope with gallium. This is the gallium source. And now we have this very, let's say, various shapes, various forms, various objects. We can get Christmas trees like this. We can get Chinese towers like this. We can get these arrays of pyramids. We can get what we call brochettas. And in fact, what we are doing this, when we had in the gas phase, when we had a new atom, we are modifying surface energies and kinetics. So in fact, we are modifying the planes, we are modifying the crystal growth, and we can play like this with these several facets. Okay, just to finish also, this is advanced characterization. When we dope a semiconductor, we want to know if the impurities are incorporated. So it's a nice example of atom probe tomography. This is the name of the tool. In fact, we evaporate the tip of the nanowire, and with the detection of the ions, we can, after that, reconstruct the volume, the evaporated volume. So in this zinc oxide doped with nitrogen, we see that there is oxygen, there is zinc, of course, and the doping is homogeneous. So we can quantify the doping, and we can say, okay, it's homogeneous, there are no clusters, so it's the experiment was successful. And this is a nano device. This is a field effect transistor with a single nanowire. The nanowire is here, the source, the drain, and the gate at the back side, so we can collect all the information about the electrical measurements on this nano device. Okay, so that's my conclusion. I hope I convince you that zinc oxide has many exceptional physical properties for future applications. Indeed, it's very suitable material for nanoscience and nanotechnology. We can have these nano objects very easily, even at low cost. It's possible. Crystal facet engineering is also interesting by playing with the doping. Characterization tools are available not only for zinc oxide but also for all semiconductor nanowires we can use. And as I told you, opportunities are open and collaborations are needed.
Perfect.
Thank you.